Finally, we got a good episode. It's been a while. This might be a high watermark.
Yeah, actually, it is a good one. I actually was waiting for you to say dun 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 dun, which is the primary music cue of this episode. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to our next episode of Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. I'm, of course, your host, Captain Matt Ross, accompanied by the very musical XO Michael Pontone. How we doing tonight, Mike?
That's me, a little under the weather, as usual, as the father of a tiny little baby who coughs and sneezes right in your face. But
no, I thought just because you were licking doorknobs. But okay.
I mean, I've been licking doorknobs for years. But yeah, it was no, I'm doing okay. Took some cold meds, so let's see if this actually affects my podcast performance. But I am invigorated and elucidated and encaptivated by the fact that we do indeed have this year excellent episode.
Yes, tonight's episode is The Enterprise Incident. It's actually what I consider the best of season 3 of the original series. It's a good one, written by D.C. Fontana and directed by John Meredith Lucas. It's actually one of the best ones, I would say, out of all of Star Trek in the original series. And it's actually based off of something in real life. You want to know what that is?
Yes.
You might even. It's called the Pueblo Incident. They're talking about the USS Pueblo that was captured by the North Koreans and held its crew captive for over 10 months in real life.
Huh.
Yeah, so this is kind of based off of that, and part of the issues on this story was that they were afraid that NBC would see through the fact that this was kind of a story of the Pueblo incident, but it's not really. So what I'd like to do is just read you the very quick summary, if I may, as we always do, from our book over here. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
It says, and this is a press release for September 9th of 1968, Captain Kirk disguises himself as a Vulcan Romulan in an attempt to free the USS Enterprise, which is being held captive, while Mr. Spock is prisoner to the charms of a female Romulan commander on NBC's television network.
That's
not even close.
Yeah, not even close. I mean, do they mention how they became prisoner? It's because of Kirk. But
yeah.
So let me just start off here. So many new things in this episode. So let me just go down the list here. I assume first mention of the neutral zone.
Now, it's not actually. The first mention of the neutral zone is in the first season episode, Balance of Terror, which is also actually when we first see the cloaking device, too.
But wait. The cloaking device was in Balance of Terror?
Yes, it was.
Then why are they pretending in this one that the cloaking device is some new piece of technology they've never heard of before?
I believe the Romulans have developed a cloaking device, which renders our tracking sensors useless.
Fred Friedberger. Now, I have no idea why they did that, but I'm going to blame Fred Friedberger because of Freiberger. The original script on this, D.C. Fontana had a lot of arguments with him over this. Surprisingly, Friedberger, again, with his more jokey style, or rather more comedic and entertainment style as opposed to science realism, wanted to interject sex and comedy more than what D.C. Fontana had in her regular script writing, although she is responsible for comedy.
Hold on. I just want to jump into a couple of different things here because, you know, I love lore. Captain really tackles this podcast from like the history of the writing and everything. I always tackle it as more of a nerd about the actual lore of Star Trek and how it was kind of commenced in the TOS series. So just a couple of different things. Firstly, this is the first time that they made a reference to the overlapping technology of the Klingons and the Romulans.
Yes, it's actually also the first time, really technically, that you actually see a Klingon ship. You don't actually see it until this season. Now, you could say, like, but I've seen it before, but then you've seen it before in the remastered edition.
Okay.
This is the first time you actually see a Klingon ship.
So, Captain, what is the in-lore universe? Because I know that the Romulans and the Klingons hate each other, and the Romulans have slaughtered the Klingons on a couple of different occasions. Why did they end up being allies at least long enough to develop their space technology together, parallel?
Well, you have to keep in mind this is a parallel of real-world events. China and Russia, in some senses, exchanged things to be a buffer against some larger power, the United States. Not exactly good friends, and they've slaughtered each other hundreds of times, or several times. But that's what this is. In fact, in order to get around it, there was a lot more in the script, but they just settled it with one line, which Spock says, intelligence reports that, and then he says about that line about how Romulans and Klingons are sharing information.
Intelligence reports Romulans now using Klingon design.
And you can see that all the way through Star Trek 3, in fact. There's also a question of whether or not the ships in Star Trek 3 were like surplus Romulan ships. Originally, Star Trek 3 was supposed to be Romulans, not Klingons. But the story here is that they were just trading information back and forth. So there's a lot of interesting things. Seduction, spycraft, insanity. But yeah, that opening scene with Kirk losing his mind and the dialogue or the doctor's medical log about how Kirk is losing his mind. I like the way that all played out.
I'm concerned about Captain Kirk. He shows indications of increasing tension and emotional stress,
including crossing into the neutral zone. Did you like that?
I mean, okay. I thought that there might have been like a little bit of weakness with the motivation, or rather, more not the motivation, but just that I guess that Kirk just had this secret plan where he was just going to talking with Starfleet brass, and he's just like, I'm going to pretend I'm really pissed off, and just am going to push into the neutral zone. They make some reference later on in the episode of like, oh, his desire for glory. But it's like a little weak, although I do like that he obviously had to keep it secret from his close confidants, so that way Spock could truthfully, make the statement of, I'm not lying, he's been erratic for the last few weeks. And I really like that it starts off very rare. Have we ever had an episode yet that starts off with McCoy starting off with McCoy's log?
Not really. This is actually the first one where McCoy is basically saying, like, I'm worried about Captain Kirk and all of the stresses he has. Normally, McCoy is either giving a report or running into Kirk or in some way. But here, we hear McCoy's inner voice going on, wondering, is the captain okay? He notes that they haven't had shore leave in a while, and they've been on patrol for a while. And the last time they were over here, the neutral zone, they almost died. So there is that stress there. So I could see that. But I agree with you. It's a little weak.
And now that means that the Romulans also, from Balance of Terror, they were the first entity to develop both a cloaking device and photon torpedoes?
No, the photon torpedoes are actually are different origins. Klingons have them. If you watch Enterprise, it's a item that the Vulcans and Andorians kind of have, and the humans also develop on. It's never really clear on where they are. Humans have the photon torpedoes. Those are just supposed to be regular torpedoes, obviously, but the Romulans had the plasma torpedo. They were trying out on that episode, Balance of Terror, trying out various technologies, both stealth technology and the enveloping plasma torpedo weapon, just on that ship as a platform to see if it would work. And, well, it kind of did, but it didn't, since the Enterprise was able to track them. There are a lot of weak points in the story, like holes, I would agree with you. Like, was Spock in on it from the very beginning? McCoy mentions later about it. I didn't know this was a ploy until later. It's a little bit difficult to imagine. And the idea that the Federation actually was setting up to have one of their premier starship captains and crews and ship cross into the neutral zone as a ploy to draw out the Romulans and steal their cloaking technology, which is different than it was in the first season. So, I mean, it's a little tenuous, but I'll give that a pass. I thought it was well done for that opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
That's, it's also kind of like reminds me of the Kobayashi Maru, because it's the exact same type of thing. Do you
Yeah,
recall that?
of
Yeah.
course. Yep. So, crossing the neutral zone, although they actually had a reason to be doing that.
Sir, that'll lead us directly into the Romulan neutral zone. Yes, very perceptive, Mr. Sulu. I know where the course change takes us.
May I remind the captain that if the starship enters the zone,
I'm aware of my responsibilities, mister.
Yeah, that's I like the way they do it in Star Trek too. But in real life, this was actually the second day of Freiberger's day on the job. And he had concerns, and so did Justman over this. They had originally had it, or DC Fontana had it, where Sarek was in this episode, and they were trying to negotiate something and then use spycraft to steal the cloaking device in order to save money, $3,000 in 1966 dollars. They decided not to hire Mark Lennard to come on over there. It's a big chunk of change. That's $27,000 today, the $3,000 appearance for Lennard. So they saved $27,000 in today's dollars for an appearance of essentially half a day shooting. So that was that idea behind it.
Honestly, I think it would have been. I think there was enough going on in this episode without also adding in Sarek. One man's opinion.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're 100% correct. I think that's correct. They actually, the original name of this episode was called Ears because it was supposed to be McCoy and Kirk have the surgery wandering around the Romulan ship. I'm glad they changed the name.
That was a good change. Good change.
it's a good change. It's a good change.
The writing of this episode, tell me about it now.
Well, the writing of this episodes, this was like one of last of DC Fontana's work. Fontana really worked hard on this, and when Freiberger and everyone else, mainly Freiberger, got his hands on it, he wanted to make it a sex scene with Spock and the Romulan commander. Now, you could say after watching this, that's implied in this.
Oh, yeah.
But he wanted to have more sexy time in it, more hugging, kissing, and nuzzling. In fact, it could turn into a huge argument, which was played out in the magazine Starlog, where basically Fontana was calling Freiberger an idiot and said, basically, we've been going over this for the last several years. We know that the Vulcans are not the nuzzling, sex-obsessed types. This is ridiculous that we're having this done over here like that. And she was really bitter over all the changes they kept wanting to do, mainly sexing it up. And I have to agree with her on that. It's something that New Trek apparently still hasn't learned, that the Vulcans aren't like sex toys. If you watch, for example, Strange New Worlds, Spock's already had 3 separate romances in it.
Did you guys ever watch the show?
She did not like the addition of a seduction scene. They've toned it down. And here, I'll give you the exact quote. "We have established Vulcans do not nuzzle, kiss, hug, or display any form of human affection." So right there, she said that she didn't like the fact that Freiberger didn't seem to understand that. And again, making allusions to New Trek where people don't seem to understand things. Freiberger says, well, maybe DC Fontana should look at Journey to Babel, like with, the mother and father of Spock. We could take an angle, and Dorothy Fontana lost her temper because she goes, "I wrote Journey to Babel. Stop telling me what my own scripts say." So there was a lot of tension back and forth. She did rewrite it about 4 times. There's a lot of tension with the new producer coming on in. Gene Roddenberry still leaving. The more camp was actually injected into season 3. You already felt it in the last episode with Spock's brain.
Brain! What is brain?
And by the way, Spock's brain was filmed after this. Spock's brain is 6th. This is 5th. Which one would you have picked? This one or Spock's brain to start the season?
Well, if I knew I had a stinker, I definitely would have started with this. Although I will say, this really does start in media res. And it throws someone right in. Maybe they thought that Spock's brain was going to be a little bit more of okay, we're all getting together again. Everyone's acting normal. It would have been odd after a break coming back and seeing Kirk acting a little crazed. And I think that you referenced this last time when we or 2 times ago when we were chatting about our best and how I liked William Shatner playing, deranged and violent in in the Mirror Mirror episode, he
Mhm.
goes for it here. He's good when he's like, "I'll kill you." It was not bad.
I kill you!
True. Well, here this was good the way they played it, with Kirk losing his mind. But just to get into where we are, they cross into the neutral zone and they're surrounded, which I always find hilarious, considering that you think the Enterprise could go up and down. It's later borne out towards the end, but they're surrounded by the Klingon ship. Scotty notes they're Klingon vessels, and we already just talked about the Romulan and Klingon alliance, and it would be a feather in their cap because the Enterprise is substantially more advanced technology than anything the Romulans or actually the Klingons have. So they are surrounded and they're trying to capture it. And then we have that scene in the conference room down on the Enterprise.
That was
I love that.
I love that little display that they had with the Warbird
yeah.
versus the Enterprise schematic. It was pretty sweet.
Yes. And the way they have the power distributions on it, that's cool. I do like the fact that coming out there, it's like Spock saying, "You wouldn't need our advice if you didn't force us to cross into the neutral zone."
If we had not crossed the neutral zone, on your order, you would not now need our opinions to support a decision which should never have had to be made.
Yeah.
That entire bit. And then McCoy again saying, "Jim, you did that?" And that's uncharacteristic Kirk. Dismissed. That was actually, I really like that. It's just the anger in Shatner's portrayal of Kirk, like angry at McCoy questioning him.
Dismissed, Doctor. Jim, I said dismissed.
I thought that was just very well done. But it also shows you that Scotty is able to, whatever, I'll just put up with it. I kind of like the way that actually works.
I love Scotty again, seeing him as a bridge commander. The continuity is good. That they showed that in the first episode or the first season. They kept that going throughout the entire time. That quietly he is the man in charge when the captain and the first officer are gone.
Yeah. He also shows that he's competent and able to comply with orders.
By the way, quick aside, Spock is, I think this might be the first time, I think this is like the first time that he's actually referred to as the first officer. So he's the science officer and the first officer?
Yes. No, he's referred to as the first officer before, but this is more of a power play here. He's he's the executive officer, just like you.
That's me.
So
just quick question, and then sorry for interrupting. I'm just very curious about this stuff. By the time the Federation has the next generation, they phased out science officer as a designation.
Yeah, that was a change in Next Generation. They wanted to make it different. So Data was sort of the science officer. They still wear blue, most of the science staff, but they're never really seen as much. That was the idea, to make Next Gen its own thing. And also even changing of the colors, except for science. So science and medical were still blue. Command was turned to red because Patrick Stewart looked better, all that stuff. But yeah, it's kind of not there.
Executive offices, being the science officer, was not there, and because Data was ops,
right? But the dedicated science officer on the bridge is a secondary character in the Next Gen cast, and the executive officer is more of an actual executive officer, and Riker,
right,
being like the number 2 person on the bridge with the captain, or in real life someplace else, so they're not at the same place at the same time. In Star Trek, they made Spock both XO and science officer. It's a rarity. If you take a look, let's say, at Wrath of Khan, Chekhov is just the executive officer of the USS Reliant. He's not science.
Sure.
So, but he happens to be there. That's actually kind of neat. But Spock is so super cool. He can do both, and that's what happens. I did like it in the beginning, though. There's kind of the difference you could see between the Romulan and Federation technology. When Sub Commander Tal's getting a message, it's like he has to take a separate piece to his ear to answer things, as opposed to the Federation, more of like a speakerphone type of quality. I kind of like that. Is there, you can see like there's a differences between the two empires, if you will.
And I like that
But
it's
they-
matriarchal, not matriarchal, but that, it's implied that there is no division between sexes. You see that in Cardassians. I gotta say, you don't really. Klingons and Vulcans, and even I would dare say, well, no, the Federation's pretty egalitarian. But Klingons and
It is.
Vulcans are, and obviously Ferengi, they're kind of, patriarchal.
Sort of. I mean, you do have Klingon women in battle, and you have Lursa and Bator, but that's 80 years away from this story of
Not only
Star
that,
Trek.
like they're looked at as oddities, Lursa and Bator, and
That's true.
they're rebels, right? They're trying to overtake the Klingon Empire.
That's true. They are rebels. That's true. But anyway, getting back into this story, the Romulan commander wants to have a sit down with Kirk and Spock and are willing to trade like two officers. Kirk basically tells Scotty, if they try and take the ship while we're over there, go down swinging.
Mm-hmm.
And Scotty's like, yep, I'll do it. I think that's actually pretty wild.
You're to fight, and if necessary, destroy yourselves. Is that clear? Perfectly clear.
There's also just the idea of the Cold War tensions. Like, we don't trust you and you don't trust us. We'll beam over people at the same time. It kind of has that Cold War Checkpoint Charlie thing, like in East-West Germany type of thing.
Of course, and I was really impressed that despite that, they went the kind of more evolved Star Trek route where the head of the enemy is charismatic, reasonable. She's not evil.
Yes.
She's not some mustache-twirling sadist. She's like, listen, I've got your ship. Give me what I want. And by the way, this doesn't have to be painful. I've got no interest in like slaughtering anyone. Like really smart storytelling. So, I mean, Captain, can you give us any detail as to what made them decide on a female antagonist?
Captain Kirk,
Commander, I'm on it.
I don't think so.
Well, that actually is the one good choice that Fred Freiberger added. He wanted to make the Romulan commander a woman. It's only when he wanted to make it a sexy romance that Fontana hated it. But that's the main reason. And the actress, Laura Linville, she actually worked with Shatner before in various types of things. What's really humorous about her, it's not really about her, is her daughter plays the same character in the internet version of Star Trek called Star Trek Continues. They look exactly
cool.
the same.
That's awesome.
I'm going to put that on. Yeah, I'm going to put that on our community page for everyone to take a look at. Don't forget to look at that. And by the way, guys, while you're listening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification, and email us. We're dying to hear from you all. We miss you.
It's true.
But that's pretty cool. I actually like the fact that she wasn't a mustache twirling freak.
Very smart.
Very smart. She knows what she wants. She's trying to find out why is it that the Enterprise crossed the neutral zone. She obviously knows it's a spy mission. And I like the way she plays it. She pulls in Kirk, says what happened, and Kirk gives his BS of, we had navigational errors. We fixed it. And then she calls in Spock, and that's where Spock says, yeah, Captain Kirk is a nut job. I like that entire little bit.
Well, also just the back and forth about that, acknowledging that they come from the same lineage, Romulans and Vulcans, and
What earned Spock your special interest?
He is a Vulcan. Our forebears had the same roots and origins.
they basically look alike. I mean, Romulans tend to have more pronounced ridges on their foreheads, and their skin tends to be darker, but I mean, essentially the same. And I really liked the. It's just the introduction into the whole Vulcans cannot lie, which of course they can. They just do not lie.
Well, they choose not to lie. It's a rumor that Vulcans do not lie, and Spock says that is true.
That Vulcans are incapable of lying.
It is no myth.
But
That's
they
a
can
lie.
exaggerate. It's a lie in and of itself.
Of
Who
course.
said Vulcans don't lie? It's just a rumor. It's just because they're so logical and cold that it always seems like they're telling the truth.
Also, that I think that it might be a massive taboo within their culture to lie. Like, so like, what's his name? Spock in the voyage home says, "I cannot lie." But then later on, when he's like, "Do you like Italian?" he ends by saying, "Yes," even though.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite bits of dialogue and interpersonal play, like a genius acting scene, is in my favorite The Undiscovered Country, between him and Spock and Valeris, when he goes, "A lie? Like, you're lying? Are you being that shameful?" And she says, "A choice." When she says she doesn't
Yes.
know she can't remember where the Kittimer Accords are.
Right. That's actually one of the more disturbing scenes in all of Star Trek, but we'll
Yes.
get to it. It's talking about mental rape. But some of the things that they
Violation,
continued
yes.
from, yes, they have the continuation from things from Balance of Terror, again, from the style of the uniforms of the Romulans to the helmets, which is mainly to save money on making ear molds on everybody. I just like the whole design with that like kind of gold like top and the brass, I guess, helmets. It really makes the Romulans look different. And the outfit of the Romulan commander, although short, it's actually not so bad. A funny scene later where she switches into the dress. That's a dress that she advised Bill Theiss, the designer for costumes on Star Trek, to make. But it was like more sheer and see-through, and she changed it so it was more solid, and Bill Theiss liked it. So the dress that you see her wearing was actually all by Miss Linville's suggestions. So I think that's interesting. I'm glad it was not sheer see-through, actually.
Yeah, that would not have made too much narrative sense.
Yeah.
By the way, Trek Echoes of Future Trek. This is the first of many times where a Federation officer will go incognito by disguising themselves to look like someone else, so a different race. So, a great DS9 episode when Odo, who has lost his shape-changing abilities, Sisko, and O'Brien all dress up like Klingons, which was awesome. And I mean, one time didn't Riker get dressed up and then end up in an alien insane asylum by accident?
Yeah, that's true, and also that's a frame of mind.
Right.
But I'm also thinking of where Riker gets captured and capture him. That's actually an episode called First Contact, not the movie. But also, if you go back to first season, Return of the Archons, which I know is not your favorite, they are actually dressed differently, and they screwed up the way they looked. Sulu and O'Neill go down to the planet dressed in like 1700s garb when they should have been in 1800s garb. So, they don't always get it right, but in this time they sure did. The thing that I also like about this is, and then it continues from the first season to this season to next gen, is kind of that story of that Romulans and Vulcans were separated by something. It's never really totally explained. It is in books that the Romulans, who did not want to adopt Sarek's idea of logic, fled in their primitive ships that did have warp drive, and they settled on, well, what the humans called Romulus and Remus, which is, the founders of Rome. That's why they all have a Roman motif, too.
Of course, they call him Centurion.
Right. No patterns of force. But yeah, or rather, not patterns of bread and circuses. But I always thought that was funny that they were that way. But it's interesting to have they continued the style all the way through.
Yeah.
I
can't believe that that Star Trek Nemesis, for as crappy as it is, was the first one to introduce Remus and the Remans, which I kind of really dig that they were
a subspecies,
the subspecies, and that there was like a power generating planet. Also, I mean, I gotta say it, I don't like the Romulans. In terms of the race that I would want to get a drink with on Star Trek, they're pretty bottom of the barrel. I think I'd rather get a drink with a Breen first. But
not if you see Discovery, you won't.
Oh boy, I'm not going to. But I will say that they did better than the Vulcans. The Vulcans didn't have a star empire. They did not have advanced technology as advanced as the Romulans, nor did they have like the Tal Shiar. I mean, they were not nearly as profound. Now, obviously, you'd say, well, they didn't want to be. They put logic as more of a and philosophy as greater priorities, but still, by any human measure of success, the Romulans kind of won.
Well, they didn't actually have an empire, but they had numerous colonies all over the place. And I would say the Romulans didn't have warp drive when they met them in Balance of Terror. They only had an impulse drive and lower tech. In fact, they still have lower tech. They're just the only thing they can hang their hats on is this sort of cloaking technology, which they traded to the Klingons. That was the only way they were able to get stuff. So, I would tell you that the Vulcans were just superior in their science and their exploration. They just did not have as much of a expansionist policy. I mean, if you watch Enterprise, and when we eventually get there, they help humanity, some would say repress humanity, to reach the stars. And they have their hands in everything. Of course, they're also at odds with the Tellarites and the Andorians until the humans come on the scene. So for a measure of success, well, I mean, the Vulcans are also a democracy, and the Romulans are a dictatorship with an emperor. So I don't know how you measure your successes, but I don't know it's necessarily they're analogs. They're opposites, if you will.
Sure.
So I would go with that.
Fair.
But, when we get there, I do like the fact that they put, after it's determined that Kirk was lying and he says he's going to kill Spock, they throw him into the brig. I think the funniest line is what McCoy says over here. Doctor, you're needed on the bridge. And then he sounds like all of medicine today in the United States. I don't make house calls. It's like, what are you kidding me?
Doctor, you must beam aboard the Romulan flagship immediately. There's been an injury.
I don't make house calls.
But that's where we finally get our sort of twist. And I also think our biggest hole at that point. Spock goes down there to see what Kirk is, and we use the world-famous Vulcan death grip, which is to kill Captain Kirk, which really isn't a thing, which we later find out.
Yeah.
Did you like that little bit in there?
I thought it was interesting, although obviously I knew that he wasn't dead.
What did you do? I was unprepared for his attack. I instinctively used the Vulcan death grip.
But of course, I was just like, well, it doesn't sound like very Vulcan. They would have developed something that could kill someone. The whole point of the nerve pinch is that they're going to incapacitate someone without hurting them. But I thought it was fine. It's cool.
I thought it was interesting where he goes like, you killed him. It's got echoes of a mock time. With the wedding ceremony with Spock.
Sure.
But I do like that whole thing. And then you see Chapel in sickbay freaking out that Captain Kirk opens his eyes, which is a weird effect because I think they just sort of refilmed it. If you look at it carefully, it looks like they have Shatner open his eyes and then close his eyes again. Mm-hmm. I do like that, but the bigger portion is when the Romulan commander announces to the ship that Mr. Spock has testified and said that you guys are spies. I like that Scotty says, you try and come over here, I'll take you all down.
Yeah.
Or as many of you. It's like, no, don't mess with Scotty. Scotty's a killer. I like him. He's really effective as second officer.
And if you make any attempt to board or commandeer the Enterprise, it will be blown to bits along with as many of you as we can take with us.
Don't mess with the engineers. That's what I say. Anyway.
Quick aside. I want to play a quick little game with you. I'm going to ask you who you'd rather go out night of drinking at a bar with, okay? I'm going to ask, the first one, and then we're going to go down the list, and it's going to be compared to the last one. So, okay, Romulans or Vulcans?
Romulans.
Romulans or humans?
Oh, well, humans, because we like the same type of foods and stuff.
Humans or Breen?
Well, humans.
Breen or Borg?
Wow, that's a tough call. Well, you want me to use my knowledge from DS9 on the Breen, right? So,
yeah.
I'd probably go out with
You have to say Breen. Yeah, come on.
Because the Borg would make me pay for everything.
Breen or Changelings?
Probably still the Breen.
Breen or Vorta?
Probably the Vorta. That way I know if my drink's poison.
That's true. Vorta or Andorian?
Andorian.
Andorian or Ferengi?
Andorians.
Andorians or Cardassians?
Cardassians, I think.
Cardassians or Klingons? Last one.
Probably the Klingons, although
Yeah.
I'd probably pay for it in the morning. So,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
where does that lead us?
No, that's it. I figured that was going to be your answer. Okay, sorry. Thank you for indulging me, Ken.
Okay, so which one would you go out with at the end? Also the Klingons?
Yeah, Klingons are probably my top if I had to choose. I mean, they're just going to be a fun time, and hey, some of those Klingon ladies, they'd be interesting to smooch, I'm not going to lie.
You just like boob outfits.
If it was a Cardassian, I would just feel like they might, we might have a lovely evening together, and then there might be some knife slid between my ribs for some reason I did not know why.
And the Vorta, what would you do with them?
No,
There are no women with the Vorta. So.
There are, actually.
Oh, no, there are. Yeah, but they probably will kill you. And let's see, you asked me about the Andorians. You like the blue ladies?
I don't know. I've never seen a female Andorian, but no, she seemed cool.
That's because you haven't seen Enterprise. So
yes,
what about the Borg? You wouldn't go out with the Borg because
no.
they'd what? No,
because they wouldn't be very good conversationalists.
But would you go out with the Tellarite though for drinks? The pig people.
I don't know anything about the Tellarites.
Yeah, you'll have to wait till Enterprise. But anyway, let's get back to our episode here.
Yes,
now that
please.
you know that I would drink with Klingons and have great honor for the struggles within. Although I probably can't drink as much as they are. Hell, I can't even drink that much now. Hey, I've stopped drinking a lot of it. It's just
good. It's better. Yeah, booze is awful.
Lost
anyway,
weight.
Let's get back into it.
Sure, except for Angels Envy Bourbon. That's good stuff. Anyway, so this part over here where Kirk wakes up, I always find that bizarre. He says, well, I'm going to tell you about it now. And Chapel said, you always knew about this plan? And he goes, no, I didn't know about it till I beamed over to the Romulan ship. Who told McCoy about the plan when he beamed over to the Romulan ship? You think Kirk said this is all a secret plan while he's in the brig of the Romulan ship?
I didn't know it until I beamed aboard the Romulan ship. Jim and Spock were operating under Federation orders.
It just doesn't really make sense. That's my biggest hole in this episode.
There are a lot of things. I mean, again, there are 1,000 different ways that this plan could not have worked out. What if they got a much less understanding, captain of a Romulan ship?
Romulan ship. Yeah. And what happens is McCoy said they decided to do an autopsy on Kirk. Yeah, that would have been an issue as well. But I do like when we see McCoy saying to Scotty, you got to get down here. It's very important. He goes, more important than being surrounded by 3 Romulan ships? What are you, out of your mind? But then when he comes down there, he sees Kirk with the ears on him. And this is where the plan comes up. He takes one of the prisoner or exchange hostages. He takes one of their uniforms and he beams aboard the Romulan ship. Now, this is actually one of the problems Fontana had. They had this idea that all the ships had their shields up and no one could beam through shields.
Yeah.
But when the original idea was Spock tells everyone to turn off the shields and lower the weapons, so then the Romulans, knowing that they weren't under attack, then they lowered their shields and turned off their weapons. So that's how they were able to have Kirk beam onto the ship. And again, remember, it's Kirk and McCoy originally.
Well, there have been plenty of little in-universe explanations. Like, can't you give someone your shield harmonic and beam through?
Well, that's later thinking, but that's not what this is. But the original, if that one sentence was there, or Spock said, "Scotty, go down to turn off your alert status and turn off the phasers," it's an order. That one sentence probably could have explained it, but it's fine as it is. I'm going to let it go. It's going to let it go.
Sure.
And we also get to see Romulan ale for the first time. It's the blue stuff that the Romulan commander is offering.
Yeah, I was so excited to see that too.
They don't call that. It's interesting. So they're using food to bribe Spock and saying you should come over here.
There's no doubt that the cuisine aboard your vessel is far superior to that of the Enterprise.
And she's getting all kind of sort of cuddly while Kirk is looking for the cloaking device, which Spock is supposed to tell them where it is. But they discover it's like a hallway that's covered in red. and Kirk is wandering around the ship pretending to be someone else. So it's luckily for him, he's walking by, I guess, the new guy. He doesn't recognize that he's not a Romulan. So, whatever. But that little dinner scene, I kind of like the way that the Romulan commander is trying to sex up Spock in a way to kind of use her wiles, saying like, we're not like Vulcan women. We're not logical. We're passionate.
We have other inducements.
And Spock is kind of digging it. What I find humorous about it, though, is the way how quickly it moves and how she's trying to offer all these things to him, whether it's food, which is supposedly better, or she's saying, maybe you could come work with me. Like she's already in love with him. But there is one weird part about the whole thing. You never know her name.
Okay.
The weird part, well, yes, was dealing with aliens and outer space and cloaking devices. But the weird part of this story is you never know the Romulan commander's name. She never says it. She says, you want to hear it? She whispers it to Spock, but she never says her name, ever, in any version of this, except in the Apocrypha, like the books, My Enemy, My Ally, and some other things. But she doesn't say her name ever. You find that a little bizarre?
Yeah. Now, do you think that was a writing choice or just a mistake?
It was a writing choice. It's a little strange. I mean, like, the sub-commander's name is Tal. You know all the Enterprise crewmen, but you never hear her name. It's a little strange. You even know in Star Trek 3 it's Commander Krug, which is kind of bizarre.
You never hear the term, they never say the word Krug?
I don't think they say the name Krug either in Star Trek 3.
Interesting.
But, because he goes, my name is not important, is what he says in Star Trek 3. But here, you would think like she would say, I'm Commander blah, blah, blah. But nope. It's some sort of artistic name that's not appropriate for a soldier, which is odd what Spock is saying. But this is the point where as she goes to change in her sexy dress, which I actually kind of enjoyed that dress, by the way. It's, something nice. Yeah. Would you put your wife in that white dress, or would you say, hey, hun, wear this for me for my Star Trek fantasy, or no?
I'm good. Thank you, Captain.
No Star Trek cosplay sexy time?
I'd rather paint the spots on some willing lady.
Okay. So...
some willing trail.
But the way that, Spock says, okay, Captain, it's around the corner from where I am. That's how the Romulans finally realize that there's something going on. And Kirk breaks into the high security section, and he steals the cloaking device after using the time-old, hey, look over there, to get into the security area, and then fighting the guy inside. Did you like that little bit?
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Did you notice what the cloaking device actually is?
No.
It's the head of Nomad, your favorite probe.
I thought it looked familiar.
And the base is Sargon from Return to Tomorrow. But I thought it looked pretty. When you see it, you can't unsee it, but it still was pretty cool.
Sure.
Then they run across to the Enterprise. The Romulans are onto them, and I actually think it's kind of interesting how the Romulan commander has this hurt look on her face, like she knows she's been played, and she goes, "Who are you to do that to me?" And Spock tells her,
What are you that you could do this?
First officer of the Enterprise.
So would you do that for me? Would you do that as the first officer?
Of course.
Of the yelling at Gaseous Anomalies? Would you help me steal a cloaking device or something? I suppose you would.
Especially if I was only, first of all, I'm a married man, so I've got no interest whatsoever in selling a buddy out for some lady. And also, if I was only attracted to women once every 7 years, what's the likelihood? And also, I will say this. She's a handsome woman, Captain, but she's not that good looking.
Oh, she's cute. I don't mind her looks. I think she's actually quite attractive. But I can't wait for you to see when I put it on the community page when you see her daughter. It's almost a spitting image. But regardless, when they get back to the Enterprise, and Scotty says something I found interesting. He goes, "I gotta plug this into the deflector system," which makes you realize if it's in the deflector system, maybe they don't have shields when it's activated, like we find out later in other episodes, like in Star Trek 3 or in Next Gen, when the cloaking device is on, it uses so much power that the Romulans and Klingons have no shields.
Sure.
I find that, it's a kind of a weakness, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if they can't track you.
And the commander has informed me that even the Romulan sensors cannot track a vessel so equipped.
And I really did like the whole, concept as when they turn on the cloaking device, they thought, all right, now change our course too, so they can't anticipate where we're going to be and fire at us.
That's true. The way they zoom away. But one of the other nice things is like when Kirk comes to the bridge and everyone's like, surprise, you're alive. Yeah. Let's get back to our job.
That was not a request, gentlemen. I see.
But I do like when he asks Chekhov to look for Spock. Chekhov says there's hardly a difference between Vulcans and Romulans. I thought that was very well handled, that entire bit. But why do you think the Romulan commander jumped on Spock as they were beaming away? A little weird, don't you think?
Why? No,
I don't know.
Because she didn't want him to leave.
I guess so, but he's clearly beaming over, so why would she want to go with him? Wouldn't she want to stay in her center of power and try and capture them?
Maybe she fell in love with him. I don't know. What do you want me to do?
Fix it.
I mean,
I don't know. You tell me. How would you change that? Would you have her go with him or no? You wouldn't change this at all?
It didn't strike me as being as something that was inherently improper.
All right. Well, there you go. They escape with a Romulan cloaking device. Spock says they can't even track it through. And then we have that last scene where Spock and the Romulan commander are sharing their feelings in the elevator. There's also a very funny Star Trek imponderable about how slow the elevator is to go from deck 1, which is the bridge, to deck 2.
Well,
it's
like
as
2
quick
minutes as it has to be.
Yes, I know, but it's funny. I'll post that one as well. But I do like the fact that the Romulan commander does profess a love or deep affection for Spock in the short time they know each other. And Spock says, I was doing my job, but I thought maybe we shared something there. So I kind of like that kind of chaste liking.
That you and I exchanged something more permanent.
That's something that modern Trek does not have. I think this was handled very well between the Romulan. And then the Enterprise escapes with the cloaking device. I think that's actually pretty cool because the Federation wanted to do it.
All the Federation wanted was the cloaking device.
So when does the Treaty of Algernon get signed?
Yes, when does that get signed? Later. The Treaty of Algernon, which is based off of the 7th season Next Gen episode Pegasus, which talks about how the Federation won't develop cloaking devices or phased technology. That's only mentioned once in...
That's the first time it's mentioned?
Yep.
Wow.
Yes, it is. Huh. That's pretty much about it, and the rest of the story. It's a good story. I think it's a fun action adventure type of story. It's it's got like mixture of spycraft, romance. It does have the sci-fi element in it, and of course, I like the ending with Kirk getting his ears cut down. But that's the entire story. So, what did you overall? You liked it a lot, I presume, right?
I did. I thought it was a very well balanced episode. I thought that the acting was good. I thought that the choices that were made were very, I was about to say logical. Everyone did things for the understandable reason. It was good stakes. I thought it was good to have, right off the bat, 3 Romulan ships decloak. And again, it just shows you what a good written episode is. Every minute, something is developing. It's the difference between the South Park writers say when you write a script, the next scene should be because this happens because of this, then this happens because of this, then this happens because of this, as opposed to and then. And then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, which we've definitely seen plenty. I mean, Spock's brain was all and then, and then, and then. Nothing happened. I mean, very little happened because of what happened in the scene before it.
Yes.
So they packed in a lot. It was very well balanced. Yeah. I thought it really suggested a lot of new lore, which, of course, I love Star Trek lore. The common technology of the Vulcans and the Romulans, the espionage of the Federation trying to get a hold of the cloak. Yeah, man, I thought it was just surprisingly well done, and I could have seen, honestly, a very similar episode being in, TNG or DS9. It felt very modern written.
Right. Felt very modern. Well, since you've said why you really like it a lot, why don't we go to our very scientific ratings on this? Since you give me every example as to what you liked better, or what you liked about this better than Spock's brain, what are you going to give this on your very scientific 1 to 10 scale?
Good acting, good choices, fantastic premise, hurt by the plot holes. Kirk's plan was pretty thin. I can't think off the top of my head what would have been better, but some other reason for them to have stumbled into the neutral zone. And yeah, all said, I'm going to go high on this one, Captain. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10.
Wow, a 9 out of 10. Well,
I really like
I'm going to tell you, you know what? I'm not going to go that high. I actually enjoy this quite a lot. I actually am going to give it, well, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, honestly. Some of the things that I didn't like it.
Yeah, please.
I liked it. It's an adventure, science fiction adventure. I also like the use of the music with that cue that they keep playing again and again with the 3 chords or 4 chords. The music is better here. It's actually Alexander Courage. He came back after fighting with Roddenberry over whether or not Roddenberry could take credit for the terrible lyrics that Roddenberry added to the Star Trek theme. I enjoyed it a lot. It's a good story. I like the spycraft. I like having those 3 ships there. I like the Romulan commander. I like the fact that she was trying to turn Spock over to the Romulan side. So we get this feeling of the powers in the Alpha Quadrant, even though it's not called that, fighting with each other or jockeying for position, and how the Federation is trying to preserve its sort of superiority in weaponry to try and get this kind of sneaky technology that the Romulans have. I think it's very well done. So I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. It's a really good episode. But now that aside, how much do you think this was in $1968, $69? How much do you think this was?
All right,
it's actually 68.
Some good.
And remember, it's less. It's always less because their budget was cut.
Right.
So how much do you think it is?
Good special effects, nice character, pretty big cast. Not that big though. Kutsarek, $179,000.
Well, actually, you win. Congratulations, Mike. You got it right. 100%. You got 100. The actual cost of this episode is $179,639.
Wow,
close
this
enough
is the first
for me.
First time on this episode. On the series.
Yes, season 3. Yes, that's right. They were actually $277 over budget, which is a big deal. The actual budget is $178,362. In real life numbers, their total budget would have been $1,647,618.98 and $25, and they actually spent $1,659,415.26, almost $12,000 over budget, which is a big deal for Paramount because Star Trek was in the hole and they were worried about not being able to cover the costs of everything. So this episode, they really went over the budget on this, but it's very well liked, this episode. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, of season 3. It's one of the best of the original series overall.
Absolutely, yes.
It's even though it ends on a slightly humorous note, it's a tolerable. It's not My Son the Doctor, which you can't stand, but it is done well. And again, the triumvirate of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy is seen as paramount in here. And we got good beats of Scotty and also the rest of the cast in there with Chapel, Sulu, Chekhov, and Uhura. It's overall an enjoyable one. So, yeah, it's a good time. But the next one we have coming up next, our next episode is called The Paradise Syndrome. I actually used part of it when I went on vacation last year. It talks about, well, I guess we'll just have to find out. The Paradise Syndrome is our next upcoming episode on yelling at gaseous anomalies. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and hit that bell notification. And stop by our TeePublic t-shirt store and get some merch, people. And if you want to email us, don't forget to email us at yellingatgas@gmail.com. Mike, anything else you want to add?
Nope. Even though I'm a little under the weather, great time with you as always, Captain. Thank you for showing me such a good episode. Appreciate it. Thank you for answering all my Trek questions. And yeah, we'll see you. Where will we see us? Where will we see everyone, Captain?
Again, we're going to be seeing everyone next time on the Paradise Syndrome, which is our next upcoming episode of Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. Unless, of course, we're out drinking with Klingons. So maybe if you're better this week, we can have some blood wine. And, of course, Mike, feel better this week. It's supposed to be an excitingly warm week here in New York. Again, everyone, as always, live long and prosper, and we'll see you out there.
You're due in surgery. I'm going to bob your ears.
Captain, please go. Somehow they do not look aesthetically agreeable on humans.
Well, are you coming, Jim? Or do you want to go through life looking like your first officer?